Now that I'm old, it was time to let the 240 hertz go and get some pixels instead. Good afternoon, welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. If you're new here, I'm Reese of the 4-piece variety, or good triple XL. And until I bought two of these a couple of weeks ago, I was still on a, OCD, it has to be lined up. Otherwise, it's just not good enough. Anyway, I was on a 1080p 240 hertz until recently, and I needed something with pixels. So I went looking for either Dell or AOC. Those are my two favorite monitor brands. And in general, they've got the best panels. They just do. This is a very, very simplified version, but not as cut down as the Dell offering. Honest, that's the G2725D. This is the Q27G4F. There we go. I actually remember the model numbers. If monitor manufacturers genuinely face roll on the keyboard when they're coming up with model numbers, but what wasn't a face roll was actually just buying these sight unseen. They were on special with a couple of the distributors in South Africa, well, namely the only distributor that really resells them. And so I went and got two because I needed a new test bench monitor, because 1080p is only really for like CPU tests genuinely these days. Everybody's trying to get onto 2K, and as well they should, because on 27-inch it does make a considerable difference on pixel density and sharpness of image, and etc, etc. And it even enhances your Adobe Prem timeline, so I can actually see what I'm working on. That was a huge motivation for me. And the fact that I'm just old now, so 240 hertz or 360 or 500 bajillion is kind of somewhat lost on me. I'm starting to slow down. Finally, at 36 years of age, I had a good time. Anyway, this panel, this stand, very, very good bang for buck is the TLDR for this review, but let me show you why. So the stand, if we start off with that, I really do like the new way that they've done this. So if I just turn it sideways over there, I will put a close-up for you as well. But changing this to being through on the side like that does mean that when I turn it into what I like to affectionately call the esports intimacy position, it naturally actually lines up perfectly with it going out the back. And that's kind of not the same though. If you do it in the other direction, then it is going to be at a complete right angle to where you're sitting. So it is kind of limited into that sort of right-handed orientation. If your keyboard was sitting here and you're using your mouse on the other side, then it is actually kind of spectacular, because they've clearly done that intentionally. Then it does have a full periscope neck with a lot of tilt and swivel, as you can see by that setup over there, and the just sheer amount of travel that it has. You do need to tilt it forward like this in order to be able to get it into the portrait mode, but then it does do full portrait as well, all with its pre-built-in stand. I wanted something with a good built-in stand. I needed a periscope neck because my main monitor is often swapped out for doing tech reviews. And then if it's on an arm, I lose the effect of what is the stand like to use. I want to use something on its base platform and stand if it has a nice periscope neck or not. The bottom of this is deceptive. This is just plastic, and then there are rubberizing on each of the feet. It does just screw directly into there. There is a little bit of aluminium that runs through the bottom over there just to give it a little bit more rigidity. So overall, at the price point, actually pretty much uncontested. I don't know of a monitor with a 3-year warranty that has all of this at this price point. As I said, the only other one that I'm kind of aware of in the market is the Dell G2725D, but then that loses out to this on color reproduction. That was another big plus for me, was this has a 93% DCI-P3. My previous monitor, being an Alienware 240 hertz IPS, had a 98% DCI-P3. So close enough. At least to get my color accuracy and color grading done well enough. I've got a VA, a TN, and an IPS panel so that I can see what it looks like on all three monitors. Because I love you and I want you to have a good viewing experience. It can't look like jut, otherwise you're not going to be able to see what I'm talking about. Then for ports, they've just gone with a single HDMI and a DisplayPort and a 3.5mm jack. That's it. At least you've got an audio pass through. I would have liked dual display in case you have like another mini PC or something, then you can at least use DisplayPort twice, and it comes with an HDMI cable which limits it to 2K 144Hz because it's HDMI 2.0. It does, however, support display 1.4, which is what you're going to need to use to get it to 180 hertz. It's kind of maybe a bit sucky if you're buying this fresh out the box and you don't have a DisplayPort, you're not going to be able to max out the refresh rate. So maybe a bit of a bad decision there from AOC. It's really kind of the only one though across this panel, so that's good. The color reproduction on this is very interesting. It's kind of warm, which is weird. I normally increase the warmth, and in this case I actually went back to neutral. It's very, very seldom that I do this, especially with AOC. I think it's the first time in memory at least that I've ever done that. However, the game color function, which is the built-in vibrancy, as it were, is very, very good. Very, very, like too good. It's almost too powerful. If you put in the FPS mode, I would suggest dropping that to 8. A weird thing about the pre-built functions is they max out brightness but leave contrast at like 60. If you, or not even, I think it's even like 50, or it could be 60, but anyway. Long story short is if you up the contrast to 65 or 70, then you can dip the brightness to about the same level. I, in general, find using them between 65 and 70 to be about the best. Then there's 2 different ways to blacklight equalize on this. There's it's kind of just like a contrast enhancer or something that it decreases the depth of the black light that's coming from here, or when there's true black on the screen, it actually decreases the depth of that and makes it a bit brighter. And then there's a secondary blacklight equalizer, which works like the default, enhancement in games so that you can see into darker areas. If you max out both of these, it's kind of like having sheets and you get like mini night vision, which I thought was obviously kind of a nice touch. The fact that it's just there and I can do it. I would have liked to have a joystick instead of the buttons to get through the OSD. That would have been nice. Just because it's what I'm used to now. Using buttons was weird. I kept closing the menu on myself, which was, awkward. But anyway, after a bit of a tune and a tweak and just figuring out how much you can actually tune the color reproduction on this monitor, if you've got a tuned monitor and a good eye, you can probably get them tuned side by side pretty accurately, which is exactly what I ended up doing. Now, the elephant in the room here, 2 areas that it did kind of fail, honestly, was in the response time setting, which is the overdrive setting in the OSD. It kind of stuffed up on fastest. It was smearing like really badly. I thought, what is this? Is it a VA? Did I buy a VA panel? No, it's still IPS. So it's going to max out at 1. If you use the 0.5 ms response time, honestly, you're going to see smear, and then I would assume that you've got to use like the strobing backlight mode in order to get it MPRT, to get it to work, but that looks terrible when you have low frame rate. So better yet, just put it in the faster mode. There is a tiny bit of motion blur from that, but it's really not bad. I did not feel aggrieved. I could have taken these back. I didn't have to do the review. I was more than happy with the performance. I would say, like I said, that dull would be a little bit more responsive in memory than this, just because of that. But having AMD FreeSync Premium, I think this is Premium, I'm not sure, but anyway, it's G-Sync compatible, is really, really nice touch to have. And then the color reproduction for the price point is just unbelievable. So where I'm living a dual life where I need it for design and being able to get my color accuracy just right for the video so it doesn't look, as I said, like jut, it's very, very good with that. You can wildly oversaturate it, so just be careful with that. As I said, I think you actually need to dip the game color off of 10 and probably bring it back down to about 8. There are 3 other user modes which you can fully customize as well. But yeah, just start with the FPS one and then work it back from there. And that brings us to an all new segment in these reviews where I'm just going to list the pros and cons. So big pros is the stand is really, really good. The customization of angle and tilt and height, absolutely perfect. The OSD functionality, incredible. The panel itself, really, really good. Cons is that weird, you can't actually use the 0.5 ms response time because it creates smear. You'll see it. I tried on both. I thought it maybe had been 1 that was faulty, but 2 to have that fault? I don't think so. That's probably just how it functions. That is kind of an advantage of getting 2 that I didn't even think about until now. And then the other con being a small one where I would just like access on a joystick instead of having buttons like it's 1926. And the last little one, just give us a DisplayPort cable instead of an HDMI, and then this would be like 10 out of 10. But because of that, I would actually, on value, I think it's an 11 out of 10, considering that you're getting the whole periscope next and stuff and a better color reproduction quality. There's nothing really else at this price point in the whole market that I can find that's going to be comparable to that with this warranty. It's why we do like AOC. They generally give you a little bit of a spec up, and they used to come with 4-year warranty. That would be cool to see it come back, because then they would put it to a 13 out of 10. Anywho, couple little tweaks over here. Maybe put in a G-Sync controller. You could probably separate them by like $30 or $40, and I would have probably gone for the spec up at that point. And maybe stop with the 0.5 ms response time thing, because it just doesn't work. Anywho, that's all I have for you on the AOC Q27G4F. There, got it right. Have a good time. See you on the flip side. Bye.